The barren alien planet lay under the oppressive control of the Exila Dominion, a tyrannical empire that stretched its influence across the stars. The planet, Kirith 9, was surrounded by towering cities, gleaming with futuristic architecture, but beneath the cold, metallic exterior, there was a simmering tension in the air. The dominant Xela species had been the undisputed rulers of the galaxy for centuries, their technology far superior to anything humanity could boast. And now, they stood at the edge of victory, having easily crushed one human resistance after another. Yet, something was different about this encounter. Something about this planet. This battle was going to surprise them. A cold, mechanical voice echoed through the command center of the alien forces. Vrax, the Exila general, stood in front of a holographic map, his sharp, alien features twisted into a sneer as he surveyed the human forces below. The humans were vastly outnumbered, their weapons and technology pale in comparison to the advanced Exila forces. His thoughts were filled with disbelief. "Dogs," he muttered as his sharp eyes scanned the battlefield, catching sight of the human soldiers crouched behind their meager defenses, their most unusual asset being a pack of canine warriors. Dogs. The Exila Dominion, with its energy shields and plasma rifles, was built to crush entire civilizations. They had witnessed the humans' desperate resistance on many fronts, but nothing compared to this. The dogs had been brought in for one reason: loyalty. Vrax couldn't understand how the humans thought these animals could make a difference. A laughable display, he thought, not expecting any real resistance. Meanwhile, on the human side, the soldiers were huddled in silence, their equipment ready, but their spirits shaken. They were fighting a battle they had little hope of winning. Commander Bonner, a tall and experienced human leader, stood in front of his troops. His dark eyes, filled with experience and pain, met the eyes of his most trusted companion, Rex, a massive dog that had been genetically enhanced with cybernetic technology. Bonner patted Rex's head as the dog let out a low growl, sensing the gravity of the moment. They were outgunned. They were outnumbered. Yet Bonner wasn't ready to give up. "Hold steady, men. We're not out yet. Just wait." His voice was low, calm, and steady, everything the soldiers needed to hear. Vrax's laughter echoed across the battlefield. His advanced Xela soldiers stood tall, their massive power armor practically invincible against human weaponry. They looked down at the human soldiers, laughing at their primitive technology. Their plasma cannons could turn human weapons to molten slag with ease. The force fields surrounding them were impenetrable to anything the humans had in their arsenal. Vrax's taunts continued. "How pathetic," he called out to Bonner, his voice amplified by the alien speakers. "You humans have no idea what you're up against, and you bring dogs." The Exila soldiers laughed. Their leader's arrogance was contagious, and soon the entire alien force joined in. Bonner's heart tightened in his chest, but he never let his face show it. He stood tall, his hands gripping the command device that would signal the soldiers. The tension was thick, but there was something in the air, something that told Bonner not to give up. The human soldiers exchanged nervous glances. They all knew the odds were stacked against them, and many were beginning to feel the weight of their impending doom. Yet they stood firm. As the aliens mocked them, Bonner stood unwavering, his eyes scanning the horizon as his hand tightened on the command device. Rex stood at his side, his mechanical enhancements subtly humming as the dog, like his human companion, prepared for the next step. A heavy silence descended upon the battlefield as both sides prepared for the coming clash. The alien army advanced, their weapons aimed and ready to fire. The human soldiers braced themselves, knowing their standard weapons would be useless against the incoming barrage of plasma fire. Then, Bonner's eyes flicked to Rex. The bond between them was palpable, a connection forged through countless battles and years of shared survival. Bonner's lips parted, his voice barely a whisper. "Now, Rex, release the dogs." The order was simple, yet filled with immense meaning. Bonner's gaze never left the alien forces as Rex stepped forward. His massive frame, covered in advanced cybernetic implants, shimmered in the light. The other K9 warriors, each genetically enhanced for combat, followed Rex's lead. They were more than just dogs. They were living weapons. The Exila soldiers paused, their laughter dying in an instant. There was something about the dogs, the way they moved, the way they looked, something that didn't quite fit with the situation. The alien army had never faced anything like this before. As Rex and his pack of enhanced K9s sprinted across the battlefield, cloaking devices activated around them, turning their figures into little more than ghostly shadows. The Exila's advanced technology could no longer track them, the dogs now invisible to their motion detectors and heat sensors. For a brief moment, the alien soldiers stood frozen, uncertain of what was happening. Bonner's heart raced, but he kept his composure. The battle was just beginning, and he knew this was their one shot. The first wave of K9 warriors tore through the alien forces with a terrifying speed and precision, their cybernetic enhancements giving them strength and agility that far outmatched anything the Exila could have imagined. They were hunting the Exila soldiers with the ferocity of predators, ripping through the alien ranks, shredding their power armor, and causing the alien forces to lose their composure. But there was more to it than just the dogs. Bonner's soldiers, inspired by the unexpected strength of their companions, now fought back with renewed vigor. Stealth cloaks shimmered into visibility as human soldiers launched their own attacks, their weapons hidden until the last possible moment. They fired in perfect sync, their energy rifles blasting through the air as they outflanked the Exila troops. The Exila, who had been so sure of their victory moments before, were now in disarray. Vrax's eyes widened in shock as he watched his soldiers fall one by one. His superior technology had failed him. The dogs were not a laughing matter. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the chaos unfolded, the camera focused on Bonner's face, his expression stoic but filled with determination. The battle wasn't over, not yet. His soldiers were outnumbered, and the aliens were regrouping. But something had shifted. The Exila Dominion, once confident in their superiority, were now unsure. They hadn't counted on the humans having a trump card like this. The camera zoomed in on Bonner's face, his jaw clenched, his eyes hard with resolve. "We've only just begun," he muttered. The humans had one chance, but this was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight for victory. The camera lingered on Rex, the massive dog now tearing through alien soldiers, his teeth glinting as he struck down his foes with lightning speed. There was no turning back now. The dogs had arrived. And the Exila would soon realize that they had made the worst mistake of all, underestimating humanity. As the first waves of the K9 warriors unleashed chaos among the alien forces, the audience was left on the edge of their seats, wondering what would happen next. The battle had only just begun, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. What could possibly happen next? How would the human soldiers manage to win this impossible battle? The suspense was unbearable as Part 1 drew to a close. The wind howled across the barren battlefield of Ectorith 9, carrying with it the smell of dust and war. On the human side, a tense silence fell over the soldiers as they braced themselves for the next phase of the battle. They had just unleashed their K9 warriors, and the battle had taken an unexpected turn, but they weren't done yet. In this moment of uncertainty, the scene flashed back to a place far from the chaos of war, a futuristic laboratory on Earth where the K9 enhancement program was born. The laboratory was sleek and sterile, bathed in cold white light. The walls were lined with advanced bioengineering equipment and cybernetic tools. In the center of the room, Rex, the dog who had just been unleashed on the alien battlefield, lay on an operating table surrounded by scientists. His body, once an ordinary dog's, now glinted with advanced mechanical enhancements. The process was rigorous and complex, but the scientists were confident. Rex, and others like him, would become far more than just animals. They would be warriors. The K9 Enhancement Project began with a simple idea: to create an army of dogs that could fight alongside human soldiers. Specially bred canines, chosen for their intelligence, agility, and loyalty, were selected to undergo cybernetic enhancements. Advanced AI systems were integrated into their brains, allowing them to think and strategize like soldiers. Their bodies were enhanced with titanium bones, electronic eyes that could see in the dark, and sensors that allowed them to track targets with uncanny precision. The dogs were also telepathically linked to their human counterparts. This connection allowed them to communicate in ways that were impossible for regular animals. It was a bond forged not just through training, but through a shared understanding, a unity that made them the perfect companions in battle. As Rex was activated for the first time, his eyes glowed a faint blue as the neural interface came online. His mind expanded, connecting with the AI system embedded in his brain. The world around him seemed to slow as he adjusted to his newfound abilities. He could think faster, react more decisively, and process information with an almost precognitive accuracy. But it was the telepathic link to his human counterpart, Commander Bonner, that truly set him apart. They could feel each other's thoughts, their emotions, their desires. They were more than just soldier and dog. They were partners. In the following months, Rex and the other enhanced dogs underwent intense training. They learned how to fight with precision, how to use advanced tactics, and how to react to ever-changing battlefield conditions. But what truly set them apart was their emotional connection with their human comrades. The bond between Bonner and Rex was more than just a tactical advantage. It was a brotherhood. They were a team in every sense of the word. As the story moved back to the battlefield on Xerath 9, Bonner stood silently, watching as the K9 warriors unleashed their fury upon the alien forces. The dogs moved with deadly precision, taking down Xilo soldiers faster than they could react. Their speed, strength, and intelligence were nothing short of extraordinary. But there was more to them than that. These were not just cybernetic animals. They were sentient beings, capable of making independent decisions and adapting to their environment. Bonner stood tall, his face expressionless, but his heart raced with pride. He knew what these dogs were capable of. They were more than just weapons. They were his friends. His gaze shifted to the sky above, where a fleet of stealth-cloaked bombers waited for the right moment to strike. The bombers were part of the same K9 enhancement program, but they were designed for a different kind of war. They were equipped with cutting-edge stealth technology, able to enter enemy airspace without being detected. They were the final trump card in this battle. Bonner's thoughts returned to Rex. The dog was more than just a soldier. He was a companion, a friend. The bond between them was unspoken but unbreakable. They had been through hell together, and Bonner knew that if they were going to win this battle, it would be because of the teamwork between them and the dogs. As the humans prepared for the next phase of their attack, Bonner shared a quiet moment with Rex. The dog, sensing the weight of the situation, leaned against his leg. Bonner reached down and scratched Rex behind the ears, the gesture filled with years of trust and understanding. "Stay sharp, boy. This is it," Bonner whispered. The bond between human and dog was powerful, and it would prove to be the key to victory. The dogs weren't just regular animals. They were fighters, strategists, and companions. And soon, the Xila Dominion would learn that underrating humanity's allies would be their greatest mistake. As Bonner looked up at the sky again, the stealth bombers began to move into position, ready to strike when the time was right. The suspense was building. What made these dogs so special? What else did humanity have hidden up their sleeves? In the midst of this chaos, the true nature of the K9 warriors was about to be revealed. They were living weapons, but they were also something more. They were the embodiment of the human spirit, loyal, determined, and unbreakable. As the dogs sprinted across the battlefield, their enhanced speed allowing them to move faster than any Xila could track, it became clear that their true power wasn't just in their physical capabilities. Their power came from their unity with their human partners. The bond between Bonner and Rex and the other soldiers and their dogs was what made the K9 warriors unstoppable. The Xela soldiers were caught off guard. Their superior technology and arrogance had led them to underestimate the humans and their dogs. They were not prepared for this. As the dogs tore through the ranks of the Xela, the aliens scrambled to react, but it was already too late. The K9 warriors were not just fighting, they were hunting. The dogs moved with tactical precision, coordinating with the humans as they tore apart the enemy. Their cybernetic enhancements made them more than capable of facing the Xela's high-tech weapons. They were a new kind of soldier, faster, smarter, and more lethal than anything the aliens had ever faced. But the Xela were not finished yet. They had advanced weapons and an army at their disposal. The battle was far from over. As the dogs continued to wreak havoc, Bonner knew they needed one last push to win. The stealth bombers would provide the final blow, but only if the dogs could hold their ground. Bonner clenched his fist, ready to give the next order. "Now," he shouted, and with a single command, the stealth bombers descended from the sky, their payload ready to strike. The dogs, sensing the change in strategy, began to move faster, targeting the remaining Xela commanders. The dogs had revealed their true power. But the battle was far from over. What came next would be a test of humanity's resolve, their technology, and their unbreakable spirit. End of Part 2. The audience was left wondering, as the dogs continued to tear through the enemy forces, what the next phase of this battle would hold. The Xela had underestimated the humans and their K9 warriors, but could they adapt in time to turn the tide? The suspense was palpable, and the battle was far from over. The dogs surged forward with astonishing speed and precision, moving as one entity with purpose and skill. Each movement was calculated, their enhanced minds working in perfect harmony with their cybernetic bodies. The Xela soldiers had no idea what was coming. Their initial laughter and confidence quickly turned to shock as they watched the K9 warriors dart through the battlefield with blinding agility. These weren't just ordinary dogs. These were cybernetic predators equipped with cloaking technology that rendered them invisible to the alien sensors. Their fur shimmered as they dashed, blending seamlessly into the environment, making them nearly impossible to target. The Xela fired energy blasts into the air, hoping to strike down their enemies, but the dogs were already out of range, moving too quickly to be caught. Each dog was not just fast, but strategic. They used their advanced AI-driven tactical thinking to dodge the aliens' energy blasts, using the terrain to their advantage. Rex, leading the charge, moved with the calm precision of a seasoned fighter, staying a step ahead of the alien forces at all times. The Xela were no match for the speed and cunning of the K9 warriors. Behind them, the human soldiers advanced with equal determination, though they were not as fast as the dogs. The humans, however, had their own tricks up their sleeves. They activated their personal cloaking devices, rendering themselves invisible to the alien scanners. The human soldiers moved quickly through the battlefield, covering their positions with AI-driven drones that provided real-time tactical data, allowing them to stay one step ahead of the enemy. As the battle raged, the air above was filled with the whistles and crashes of aerial dogfights. Human fighters, cloaked and agile, engaged the Xela air forces in fast-paced, high-altitude combat. Missiles streaked through the sky, narrowly missing their targets, while dogfights erupted in the distance as the humans' advanced aircraft took on the more heavily armed Xela fighters. Amidst the chaos, the human fleet opened fire on the Xela defense systems, disabling their shields and weapons. The orbital bombardment began as the humans' stealth bombers, cloaked and undetected, descended upon the Xela strongholds. It was a devastating show of power, and the Xela Dominion began to realize that they had severely underestimated their opponents. On the ground, the battle was just as intense. The enhanced dogs continued to move through the enemy lines, tearing through the Xela forces with ease. They were no longer just soldiers. They were hunters, using advanced combat strategies that left the Xela reeling. Rex, in particular, stood out for his tactical genius. He moved through the battlefield with laser precision, targeting and eliminating key Xela commanders one by one. The Xela soldiers, who had initially mocked the humans and their canine allies, now found themselves on the defensive. As the canine warriors closed in, the Xela began to panic. Their once confident leader, Commander Vrax, could only watch as his forces crumbled before the overwhelming power of the dogs and human soldiers. What had seemed like a sure victory was quickly spiraling out of control. The dogs moved like shadows, striking with surgical precision. They didn't just fight, they disrupted. Each command center they destroyed sent waves of confusion through the enemy ranks. The Xela had been unprepared for this level of tactical warfare. They were used to overpowering their enemies with sheer strength, but they had never faced anything like this. The dogs didn't just fight. They hunted and outwitted the enemy at every turn. One by one, the Xela commanders were taken down, their forces disorganized and broken. Rex, with his advanced AI, anticipated every move the aliens made. He led the charge, but he wasn't alone. The other dogs, each with their own unique enhancements, followed his lead, hunting in pairs and groups, their coordination flawless. The Xela were not just losing, they were being completely overwhelmed. The human soldiers, following the dogs' lead, were able to push forward, using their cloaking devices and drones to keep the Xela forces at bay. Every time the enemy thought they had gained the upper hand, the humans and their dogs turned the tide again. The canine warriors were relentless, moving like a well-oiled machine, a force of nature the Xela couldn't counter. But it wasn't just the dogs' tactical genius that made the difference. It was the bond between them and the humans. Bonner, watching from a distance, felt a deep sense of pride as he saw Rex in action. He knew that this bond was what made them unstoppable. The telepathic link between human and dog allowed them to communicate without words, to anticipate each other's moves, and to trust in each other's decisions. It was this trust, this bond, that gave the canine warriors an edge over the Xela. As the battle raged on, Bonner made a critical decision. The stealth bombers that had been lurking in the sky were ready to strike, and now was the time. He gave the order for the final phase of the attack. The bombers dropped their payload onto the Xela defense systems, disabling them once and for all. The Xela, already reeling from the loss of their commanders, were now exposed and vulnerable. In desperation, Commander Vrax ordered a massive airstrike on the human forces, hoping to decimate the remaining soldiers and dogs. But the human cloaked bombers were already in position, and they descended from the clouds like ghosts, targeting the Xela fleet with deadly accuracy. The airstrike was devastating, but it was too little too late. The human forces, now fully coordinated with their canine warriors, were too powerful. The Xela were no longer in control of the battle. The humans, aided by their enhanced dogs, had turned the tide in their favor. The Xela had once thought they were unbeatable, but they had underestimated the power of humanity and the loyalty of their dogs. The battle had reached its climax, and the Xela forces were crumbling. The tide had finally turned in favor of the humans and their incredible allies. The dogs had proven that they were more than just animals. They were warriors, strategists, and heroes. As Bonner watched the final moments of the battle unfold, he felt a surge of pride and hope. The humans had fought bravely, and they had won. The Xela were defeated, their once mighty empire shattered by the power of human ingenuity and the unbreakable bond between soldier and dog. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. The Xela Dominion had been humiliated, but this was only the beginning of humanity's rise. The canine warriors had shown the galaxy what humans were capable of, and they were just getting started. End of Part 3. The Xela had underestimated the dogs, and now they were paying the price. The tide had turned, and the humans stood victorious. But the question remained, what would come next? With the Xela defeated, Humanity's true power was just beginning to be revealed. The battle was raging at its peak. The Xela forces, despite their overwhelming technology, were struggling against the human soldiers and their unexpected allies, the enhanced dogs. But just as the humans began to think victory was within reach, disaster struck. The unexpected loss of Commander Harris, Bonner's second-in-command, changed everything. Harris had been a steady hand, the kind of leader who kept the soldiers grounded even in the darkest moments. His loss sent shockwaves through the ranks, and for the first time, the humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for vengeance. Commander Harris had been hit by a direct alien assault, a powerful energy blast that left him lifeless before he even had time to react. The impact of Harris's death was felt deeply by everyone. He had been more than a commander. He was a father figure to the soldiers, someone they trusted with their lives. Bonner, who had been so focused on the battle, now found himself haunted by the loss. His grief was raw, and the weight of it bore heavily on his shoulders, but he could not afford to show weakness. Not now. Not with his men and women looking to him for leadership. The entire squad rallied together, their resolve strengthening. Harris's death had made their mission clear. They would not let his sacrifice be in vain. They would push forward, no matter what. But the emotional toll didn't end there. As if the weight of losing Harris wasn't enough, Maya, one of the cyber-enhanced dogs, was about to make the ultimate sacrifice. Bonner had always had a special bond with his dogs, particularly Maya. She was loyal, intelligent, and incredibly brave. The bond between soldier and dog was more than just partnership. It was an unspoken connection, one that went beyond words. They could sense each other's thoughts, share in each other's pain, and fight side by side as equals. In the chaos of the battle, Maya saw Bonner in danger. Without hesitation, she rushed toward him, leaping in front of a fatal alien death blast that was meant for him. The blast hit her full force, sending her flying through the air. Bonner barely had time to react as he saw his beloved dog fall to the ground, lifeless. In that moment, Bonner rushed to her side, cradling her in his arms as his heart shattered. Maya had given everything for him, everything for humanity. Tears welled up in his eyes, and for a brief moment, the battlefield faded into the background. All that mattered was the loss he felt, the connection between them that had been severed. Maya, Bonner whispered through clenched teeth, his voice breaking. He gently stroked her cybernetic fur, feeling the heat of her body slowly fade. You were more than a soldier, you were family. Maya had always been more than just a machine. She had been a true companion, her enhanced instincts and loyalty, making her an invaluable part of the team. And now she was gone. The emotional impact of her loss was felt across the battlefield. The human soldiers, their faces grim with sorrow, found themselves fighting harder. They were no longer just fighting for victory. They were fighting for Maya, for Commander Harris, and for every life that had been lost in this war. Meanwhile, the Xela commander, Vrax, stood in his command center, watching the destruction unfold. His forces were dwindling. The humans were not backing down, and their enhanced dogs were wreaking havoc on his troops. Vrax, however, was not ready to concede defeat. His pride as the leader of the Xela Dominion was too great, and he had one final weapon that could ensure the humans' destruction. The Death Ray was a weapon unlike any the humans had ever seen. It had the power to obliterate entire cities in a single blast. Vrax, in his desperation, activated the weapon, aiming it squarely at Earth. His plan was to destroy the humans' homeworld before they could get the upper hand. But first, he had to deal with the humans on the battlefield. With the Death Ray at the ready, Vrax turned to his commanders. "Finish them," he ordered coldly. "Do not let a single human survive." Back on the battlefield, Bonner and his soldiers knew that time was running out. The battle was far from over, but they were now racing against the clock. Vrax's Death Ray was capable of destroying everything, and they couldn't let that happen. Bonner gave the order. "We're taking the fight to their command center. No more playing around. This ends now. The remaining soldiers, filled with determination and a sense of purpose, began their charge toward the Xela Command Center. The dogs, still loyal and deadly, moved in tandem with the soldiers, their cybernetic enhancements making them fierce fighters. As they advanced, the Xela soldiers tried to stop them, but they were no match for the humans' newfound fury. It was now a close-quarters combat nightmare. Human soldiers clashed with the alien forces in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The air was thick with the sound of clashing weapons, screams, and the sizzling of energy blasts. Each human soldier fought with a level of intensity that was beyond what the Xela had ever faced. The enhanced dogs took on multiple enemies at once, using their agility and strength to overwhelm their attackers. It was a scene of chaos, but through it all, Bonner remained focused. He could feel the anger coursing through him, the grief over Maya's sacrifice pushing him forward. He knew that they had to end this battle before the death ray could be used. With every step, the humans and dogs fought tooth and nail, tearing through the enemy ranks. But the Xela were not giving up without a fight. The alien soldiers were well trained, and they fought with a ferocity of their own. But their confidence was beginning to waver. They had never faced anything like this before. The human soldiers were relentless, and the dogs had proven to be a force of nature, their tactical brilliance and enhanced combat skills turning the tide in the humans' favor. Bonner and his troops stormed the command center. The alien base was heavily fortified, but they were determined to reach it. Every step felt like a lifetime, but they were getting closer. The final confrontation was drawing near. As they entered the heart of the Xela Command Center, Bonner knew there was no turning back. The death ray had to be disabled, or humanity was lost. He could feel the pressure mounting as the countdown to destruction began. The room was alive with the whirring of alien machines, but Bonner and his team pushed forward with unwavering resolve. In the midst of the chaos, Bonner's thoughts were clear. He would not let Maya's sacrifice go unanswered. He would make sure that the Xela paid for every life they had taken. The final confrontation was at hand. The tension in the air was palpable. Each soldier and dog knew that this battle would determine the fate of Earth, and Bonner, with his heart heavy from the loss of his beloved companion, vowed to see it through to the end. End of Part 4. As the battle raged on, and Maya's sacrifice fueled the humans' drive for vengeance, the final confrontation loomed. The humans, heartbroken but resolute, were about to face their most desperate hour. Would they be able to disable the death ray in time? Or would the Xela's ultimate weapon destroy everything they had fought for? The tension was at an all-time high, and the outcome hung in the balance. The battle for Earth was nearing its most critical moment. After everything they had fought for, the sacrifice of Commander Harris, the heartbreaking loss of Maya, the sheer willpower of humanity's soldiers and their enhanced dogs, it had all come down to this, the last stand. The remaining human soldiers, bruised, bloodied, and emotionally exhausted, were making a final push toward the Xela command ship. The battle was shifting in favor of the humans, but there was no time to relax. With the Xela's central defense system disabled by a precise human fleet strike, the command ship was now vulnerable, and this was their chance. But there was still one obstacle in their way: the Xela commander, Vrax, and his final line of defense. The human soldiers, despite their pain and grief, knew that this was their moment to bring the war to a close. They could feel the weight of all the lives that had been lost, all the sacrifices that had been made, and they knew that failure was no longer an option. Bonner, leading the charge, had a singular focus in his eyes. He was going to take down Vrax and end the Xela reign of terror. But Vrax, ever the cunning strategist, was not going to let them succeed without a fight. He had one final trick up his sleeve, an army of AI-controlled war robots that he believed would turn the tide in his favor. These machines were designed to be virtually unstoppable, programmed for one purpose: to destroy humanity. But what Vrax didn't know was that the humans had prepared for this moment, and they had a plan of their own. The human AI, working from within the ranks, had unleashed a devastating virus into the HFY network. The virus spread quickly, corrupting the AI-controlled robots. The once unstoppable machines malfunctioned, their movements becoming erratic, and their weapons firing uncontrollably. What had been the HFY's last line of defense had turned into chaos, and the human soldiers found themselves with an unexpected advantage. Bonner didn't waste a second. With his heart still heavy from the loss of Harris and Maya, he knew that this was their chance to strike the final blow. The AI virus had given them the opening they needed, but it was up to the human soldiers and their loyal dogs to finish the job. Bonner, alongside his most trusted dog, Rex, and the remaining soldiers, pressed forward toward the HFY command ship. The battle was intense. The humans and their dogs fought side by side against the malfunctioning robots, with every step forward being hard-earned. The chaos on the battlefield was like nothing that HFY had ever experienced. Robots that were once programmed to be the most lethal of soldiers were now clashing with each other, stumbling over debris, and firing wildly. Human soldiers, with their cloaking devices and strategic thinking, used the disarray to their advantage, closing in on the command ship. Bonner's mind raced as he led the charge. His thoughts were a mix of strategy and personal rage, remembering every face of the comrades they had lost, and the loyalty of his dog, Rex. As he advanced, the camera would often focus on his face, grim, determined, yet full of emotional turmoil. This was the moment he had dreamed of, the moment he had prepared for. It wasn't just about the survival of the human race anymore. It was about justice, vengeance for the fallen, and protecting the future of Earth. The human soldiers pushed through the chaos, navigating the wreckage of the malfunctioning war machines. Rex, ever the loyal companion, stayed by Bonner's side, using his enhanced agility and strength to take down the last few robots blocking their path. With each step, they got closer to the heart of the HFY command center, where Vrax awaited. Vrax, standing high in his command chair, had watched as his army of AI-controlled robots turned on each other. He was furious, but he wasn't one to show weakness. He was desperate now, knowing his forces were dwindling and that the human soldiers were closing in on him. But despite everything, he wasn't ready to give up. His pride and hatred for humanity wouldn't allow it. Bonner and his team finally reached the heart of the command ship, where Vrax stood surrounded by the remnants of his forces. His face twisted in anger as he saw Bonner enter, but there was no fear. Instead, there was a cold, calculated look in his eyes, as if he still believed that somehow the war could be won. "You've made it this far," Vrax sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "But you're too late. The death ray is ready, and your planet will burn. You will never win." Bonner didn't flinch. He stepped forward, every muscle in his body tense, his heart pounding in his chest. "You're wrong, Vrax," Bonner said, his voice steady, despite the pain he had endured. "This is where your reign ends. Earth will never bow to you." With that, the final battle began. Bonner charged at Vrax, his combat skills honed through countless battles, and Rex lunged alongside him, using his cyber-enhanced strength to take down the few remaining guards. The battle was fierce. Vrax's alien strength and technology versus Bonner's determination and the raw power of humanity's spirit. For a few moments, it was unclear who would win. The two fought with everything they had, the sound of their battle echoing through the command ship. Vrax's movements were swift, but Bonner's will was stronger. Every punch Bonner landed was fueled by the memories of those he had lost, Commander Harris Maya, and all the others who had given their lives for this fight. His fist landed hard against Vrax's face, and with one final decisive blow, Vrax fell to the ground. But Bonner didn't stop. He couldn't. The battle had reached its peak, and he knew that if he didn't destroy Vrax now, the HFY would rise again. With a surge of strength, Bonner grabbed the weapon Vrax had been holding, one that had the power to destroy Earth, and crushed it beneath his foot, ensuring that no further destruction could be wrought. As Vrax lay defeated, Bonner stood over him, the weight of the battle heavy on his shoulders. The rest of the HFY forces had been crushed, the AI-controlled robots malfunctioning, and the humans were victorious. But the cost had been great. So many had died for this moment, and the survivors would never forget the price they had paid. Bonner looked over the battlefield. The smoke cleared, and the cries of the wounded echoed in the background. His soldiers had won, but they had lost so much along the way. Rex, standing by Bonner's side, looked up at him with understanding, knowing that their work wasn't over. They had defeated the HFY, but there was still much to rebuild. With a deep breath, Bonner finally spoke, his voice full of both sorrow and hope. "We never fight alone," he said, his words carrying through the silent battlefield. "We fight for each other." End of Part 5. The final battle was over. The HFY were defeated, and humanity had won, but the cost was unimaginable. The victory, though hard-earned, came with the realization that the true power of humanity wasn't in the advanced technology or weapons, it was in their unwavering bond, the connection between the soldiers and their loyal companions. Earth had triumphed, but the scars of war would remain forever. The battle was over, but the war had left scars, deep, emotional, and physical. The HFY Dominion had been defeated, and humanity had emerged victorious. But at a steep price. The dust of destruction lay thick on the alien landscape, where countless alien bodies had fallen. The battlefield was now a silent graveyard, a reminder of the bloodshed and the lives lost on both sides. The humans who had fought so valiantly now stood in silence, their heads lowered as they took in the devastation around them. Bonner stood in the middle of this destruction, his body battered, his mind weary, but his spirit unbroken. His soldiers, who had fought beside him through every dangerous mission, stood with him, their faces etched with the pain of the losses they had suffered. It was a victory, yes, but it was one that came at a great personal cost. The image of Commander Harris' final moments still haunted him, and Maya's sacrifice was something that would never leave his mind. The loyal dog had given her life to save him, and Bonner would forever carry that weight with him. As he walked across the battlefield, the camera followed him, capturing every step, every reflection that passed through his mind. The silence was heavy, but it was also a silence of understanding, a silence of respect for those who had given everything for the cause. The alien landscape, once so vibrant with life and technology, now lay in ruins, and Bonner couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness for the destruction. It had been necessary to stop the HFY, but at what cost? It was a feeling he couldn't shake, the loss of friends, the sacrifice of so many lives. And yet, as he walked towards his ship, Bonner knew that their efforts would not be in vain. Humanity had won. They had proven themselves worthy of their place in the galaxy, a place they had fought so hard to protect. The camera panned out to reveal the vast expanse of Earth's fleet as it prepared to leave the battlefield and head back to Earth. The victory over the HFY was monumental, but the human race had no time to rest. The war might have been over, but humanity's role in the universe was just beginning. Earth had fought to protect itself, to defend its way of life, but now it had earned the respect of the entire galaxy. Back on Earth, news of the victory against the HFY quickly spread. People watched in awe as broadcasts showed the dogs, once thought to be mere companions, now hailed as heroes. The dogs had been an integral part of humanity's victory, their enhanced capabilities saving countless lives, and their bravery had earned them a place in history. The world celebrated their contributions, and the dogs were not just companions anymore. They were saviors. As Bonner stood before the cheering crowds, he couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and sorrow. He had led his men and women into battle, and they had succeeded. But he couldn't forget the price of that success. The fallen soldiers were gone, their sacrifices never to be forgotten. But Bonner knew they had made their choice, to protect Earth and to secure a future for those they loved. Humanity had proven that they could stand against the greatest of threats, but the future was still uncertain. In the aftermath of the battle, Humanity found itself at a crossroads. They had defeated the Exila, but they had also made a powerful enemy. The galaxy was vast, and as humanity's influence grew, so would the number of challenges they would face. Earth had shown its strength, and the Exila defeat was just the beginning. The victory was a signal to the universe that Earth was no longer to be underestimated. As Bonner and Rex stood on the edge of the landing platform, watching the Earth fleet depart, they knew that their journey was far from over. The final scene of the battle played out, and for the first time in a long while, Bonner allowed himself a moment of peace. The weight of the war had been lifted, but he knew that the universe was still filled with dangers, and new enemies would surely come to challenge them. But Earth was ready. The victory over the Exila had not just been about fighting a battle. It had been about proving that humanity was more than capable of defending itself. They had fought with courage, strength, and determination, and they had succeeded. But there was more to come. As the scene shifted, a hint of new danger appeared in the form of a mysterious signal coming from a distant galaxy. The camera zoomed in on Bonner as he looked to the sky, his face a mix of reflection and resolve. He had fought for Earth, but the universe was far bigger than he had ever imagined. There were threats out there that humanity had yet to face, and Bonner knew that as long as he had breath in his body, he would protect the people of Earth and the legacy of the dogs that had fought beside them. "I guess it's not over, is it?" Bonner said, glancing at Rex. Rex's eyes seemed to respond, a silent understanding between them. The battle may have been won, but there was more work to be done. The dogs had proven their worth, and Bonner knew they would be there, always by his side, ready for whatever the future held. "We did it. We're not alone anymore," Bonner said, a hint of a smile on his face. The words carried a weight of their own, a recognition of the bonds that had been forged in the fires of war. The dogs, the soldiers, and the humans, they were all united now, stronger than ever before. As Bonner and Rex walked off the platform together, the camera lingered on their figures. Final image of unity, strength, and hope for the future. The humans had faced their greatest challenge and emerged victorious. They had not only defeated a technologically superior enemy, but had proven to the galaxy that humanity would never be an easy target. But even in the midst of celebration, there was an underlying tension. The mysterious signal that had just appeared from the far reaches of the universe hinted at something far greater and far more dangerous than they had encountered before. The camera shifted to the stars, slowly zooming in on a distant galaxy, where the faintest glimmer of an unknown ship could be seen in the depths of space. It was as though the victory of Earth had awakened something that was watching, waiting, and preparing to make its move. Humanity's role in the cosmos had just begun, and the battles of the future were not going to be any less challenging. As Bonner and his team made their way back to Earth, the sound of their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors of their ship. They were home now, but their minds were filled with the weight of the knowledge that they would soon be needed again. Earth had shown its strength, but the universe was still full of dangers. The Exila were just the beginning. "What's next for us?" Maya asked quietly, her voice breaking the silence as she stepped up beside Bonner. She had lost so much in this war, so much that words couldn't express. Yet here she was, still standing, still hopeful. Bonner turned to face her, a small but knowing smile on his face. "We rebuild, we recover, and we prepare." His eyes held a quiet, fierce determination. Humanity has earned its place in the universe. Now we protect it. As the ship descended toward Earth, the camera focused on Rex, the faithful dog who had become more than just a companion. Rex had become a symbol, a hero in his own right, a reminder that the strength of humanity came not just from its people, but from the bonds they forged and the sacrifices they were willing to make. Rex's tail wagged slightly, a subtle yet powerful sign of his loyalty and readiness for whatever lay ahead. In the distance, Earth grew larger, a blue and green jewel against the darkness of space. Humanity had overcome its greatest challenge, But Bonner knew that the story was far from over. There was so much more to be done, so many challenges to face. But humanity had proven itself, and the future was theirs to shape. "We're not alone anymore," Bonner said, his voice filled with conviction. He turned to look at Rex once more, and the two shared a moment of silent understanding. This was just the beginning. Humanity had faced the ultimate test, and they had emerged victorious. But what awaited them in the stars was unknown. And the next battle would be even more dangerous than the last. The camera slowly pulled back, showing the ship descending into Earth's atmosphere. The stars now a distant memory as the planet's surface came into focus. The victory was sweet, but the future was uncertain. The Earth was not alone anymore, and Bonner knew that it was now a beacon of hope in the vast expanse of space. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, and the dogs had shown the world that strength came not from advanced technology or powerful weapons, but from the courage to fight, the loyalty to stand by your comrades, and the will to protect what was dear. As the scene faded to black, the words on the screen read, "The battle for humanity's future has just begun."